Hold on. Well, hello everyone, and welcome in to the Six Screens tonight. We got our first program of the evening, and folks, I want you to know this right up front. If you are new listening in to the Six Screens, by all means, don't run off. Don't think that we're a bunch of mad, irate apostates. We're certainly not here to hurt you. We're here to help you. There's a lot of things going on right now in the Watchtower that you should really be aware of, and you will hear that tonight. People will be calling in from all over the world to voice their concerns about the Watchtower organization, i.e., Jehovah's Witnesses. So if you're new to the channel, thank you for tuning in tonight. And if you can, muster up the courage and say hello to Dick and say hello to myself later on the news. So Dick is there with us. You see him there. So Dick, what do you think you might be talking about tonight?
Well, it won't be any surprise to the audience. We're going to be talking about Norway, but in particular, we're going to be talking about theocratic warfare. In other words, Watchtower lying through their teeth, their lawyers lying through their teeth, the governing body lying right through their teeth. That's what we're going to be talking about.
Well, sounds good to me. So I'll cut you loose. I'm here if you need me, Dick. So go ahead and the lines will be open. I got the telephone number, folks, is scrolling across the bottom of Facebook and YouTube. So if you get the desire to call in, there's the number. Dick would love to hear from you tonight. And I'll tell you what, anyone calling in new tonight, I have got a number of publications here. A number of publications. This one here, Grave Matters. This all has to do, most of the book has to do with the Charles Stays Russell and the grave site where he was buried at. We have another book here called Color and Character. These are articles taken from the Golden Age magazine and talking about the pseudo goofy science in the Watchtower. But I got a number of publications that ex-witnesses would love to have. If you call in tonight for the first time, I will send this to you free of charge. I'll pay the shipping and everything. So by all means, listen in, call in. Be the first time you called in, you get a book. Thank you. Dick, it's all yours.
Thank you so much, Rick, and welcome everybody. It's heartwarming here on Valentine's Day to have you all with me in my home. You probably know, Connie's not with me tonight. She's taking the night off. She's sick, and I'm sure I'll get that lovely wife back in good shape very, very shortly. Yeah, our program tonight is about the Watchtower line. I'd like to start it off with something. If I wanted to impress somebody with my athletic ability, I'd probably tell them, I hit a home run when I was in the Little League, and they'd probably believe it. But if I turned around and said, I hit a grand slam in the seventh game of the World Series, and my team was the world champions, you go, you played in the major leagues? I wouldn't tell a story like that because it's so easily proven false. But the Watchtower doesn't care. It will absolutely lie in court. They'll lie to the publishers. They'll just lie to everybody. They'll tell you one thing, we don't shun. That's what they're trying to tell the court in Norway. We don't shun. That concept is foreign to Jehovah's Witnesses. That's the same kind of lie as me trying to tell you all that I hit 2 Grand Slam home runs in the last game of the World Series. You'd say, what? Let me check the record. You check the record, you find out, I was a bench warmer in the Little League. That's what you'd find out. And it's just preposterous, the lies that they tell in open court when there is so much documentary to the contrary, absolutely contrary. Here's one of the lies that they say. This is what they're telling the court in Norway and other courts, New Zealand and Australia. We know all about this. We don't monitor the lives of people in the flock. Let me tell you, if you go to an R-rated movie, somebody's going to report you, and you're going to be in a judicial meeting. They monitor everything that you do. They monitor everything. They come into your house. They look all around. Well, you have a U.S. flag hanging on the wall. That's it. You're in trouble. They monitor everything, but they're telling the courts in Norway, No, we don't. We don't monitor people. When I was I was a reader in my book study at one time. They wanted me to count the heads and who didn't show, and how many times people commented. I had to keep record of that, but do it discreetly. I've had I had an elder come to me one time. I lived in a long street, and my house is at the top, and at the bottom of the street was another house by the sister who lived there. And one elder said to me, "If you see a brown Chevy, uh, a new brown Chevy at the bottom of the street, I want you to tell me." Well, I knew what that was. I knew the brother had, a brown Chevy, and they wanted to know if that brown Chevy was in the driveway of this sister. So maybe this sister was sleeping with him. Well, I wouldn't do it. I took it a long way around to where I had to go. But the point being, they wanted me to spy on this sister. And that goes on all the time. And as we all know, elders think nothing of asking very personal questions. They'll ask you about your sex life and feel like they rate to have the answer because they're shepherding the flock. No, they're not shepherding the flock. They think that they're the ones that are going to keep the congregation clean. We're all sinners. Everyone in that congregation is a sinner. And they're going to go after people that they consider committing a serious sin. And that serious sin, the value of that changes from congregation to congregation or from elder body to elder body. But they told the Supreme Court in Norway, we don't monitor our flock. Okay. They actually said that family members don't shun disfellowship people or disassociated people, or now it's called removed. They're not shunned. Normal family relationships go on as they always did. We all know that's a bold-faced lie. I've got a son that hasn't talked to me in 20 years. Another one hasn't talked to me in 10, I guess. He sends things through the mail, but he won't talk to me. So I'm living that life. My sons don't talk to me. Star 6, can anybody think of any other lies that the Watchtower Bible Tract Society has told that you know about that is involved in your life? Whether these lies are told from the platform or in print, like let's say the truth that leads to everlasting life. When they talk about Armageddon, they say there's a definite time when the Gentiles' times end and a definite time for Armageddon to come. And they actually pinned it down to October 1975. So that was a lie they put in print. Star 6. Can you think of any more lies?
Yeah, this is Donald here. Even though I've never been a JW, just from all the stuff I've read online and all the YouTube videos, my conclusion on this is that yes, the Watchtower does police its people, and it is policing. I mean, from what I've seen from videos, they're taught to snitch on each other, spy on one another, and so it's just a big lie that he told in court that, oh no, we don't do that, because I read the transcript of the court. I didn't see the court itself, but I did read the transcripts. And, that lawyer stood up there and through his teeth and his skin totally lied to that court because all they want is their money. They don't care. They really don't care about the people of that organization. All they want people to do is to follow their stupid rules. And then if they don't follow the rules, then they go after them gladly. They enjoy doing that. That is part of their pastime. They love going after people. It makes them feel good. It boosts them up. It makes their egos look good. Because I went and got this person. They're in trouble now. I mean, it's just a big stupid lie is what that is. And like I said, even though I never was a witness, I'm glad I wasn't, because I wouldn't tolerate crap like that. I really wouldn't.
Well, brother, I want you to know that is well said. And that's going to some of the points that I'm going to make during my program. They enjoy, I absolutely believe, and I underscore that word, enjoy, being in a committee meeting or a judicial meeting. It gives them status, it makes them important. People fear them because they think they're the link between, the elders are the link between themselves and Jehovah God. And if you get an elder angry at you, you're really in trouble with God because he represents God. Joe
And
Dyer,
you know
go
what's
ahead.
interesting though?
What's
What's
that?
funny is this is stuff I've heard. This also I've heard. While they're policing everybody else, those elders are doing the very same thing that those people that they're hunting down are doing, supposedly. So while they're policing you because they claim you're sleeping with somebody or whatever, those stupid elders are doing the same thing.
Again,
Hello?
I would say to you, you're right on target. You're right on target. Matter of
So
fact,
how is it that they have the right to counsel you and put you through a judicial committee? And oh, by the way, speaking of disfellowshipping, removal, or whatever they call it, the word itself doesn't matter, like they said in the court. What matters is the action. You can call it a cow's dingling, and it still would mean the same thing. It's not the word that matters, it's what the action is that they do, like they said in the court. Their action speaks louder than what that word really is. That word could mean anything. But we all know that disfellowshipping, removal is the same darn thing.
well,
The same thing they do in
go ahead. Go ahead, caller.
the same thing they do in the same thing they do when they're trying to launch communism. They get everybody to rat on their friends and their families, and everybody's doing everything behind each other's backs. It's a big hypocritical situation.
They
So
do
it's
that.
just nothing but it's a big commie organization is all it is.
Yeah, and
Look at all the guys that started running. They're all Germans. I hate to say it.
You guys, do you realize that that very kind of thing that the Watchtower is doing, like policing, that's the exact same thing they actually do in North Korea.
I was just going to say that.
If your family, if somebody like your neighbor or whatever sees you doing something that's against the government, they are told to report that person. So when they report you and you get reported, it's not just you that goes to prison. It's all the way up to the third generation, I think, that goes. So your neighbor could rat on you, and your whole family goes to prison.
Well, you're right. And over in North Korea, they've got this social system where you get points for ratting on people, and you get a higher standard, and you can do more in their society. But if you get ratted on because you don't like the government policy, you lose your job, you lose your house, you lose your family. And you're right. There's a very close analogy between North Korea and the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, they operate exactly the same way. I mean, if you get disfellowshipped, what happens? You lose your home, you can lose your job, lose your family, lose your friends, everything.
And that is one of the biggest reasons why people stay in, because they can't afford, they can't afford to stay in. So, to leave, they can't, excuse me, what I wanted to say is they can't afford to leave because they lose all their friendships. A lot of times Jehovah's Witnesses work for other Jehovah's Witnesses. And, you lose your job, you lose your house. I mean, almost all the jobs that I had when I was a Jehovah's Witness came by either being brought by a Jehovah's Witness into a company, and I interviewed for jobs and I got them because a JW elder, brought me into a particular company, said, this is a good guy, hire him. Star 6.
Hello, Dick.
Yes, hi, Sue.
Hi. Hi. I have a question for you. Since you were a ministerial servant, and I was only a sister, so I was never, involved in any elders meetings. Were you involved in a meeting where someone turned someone in or saw them go into let's say, a movie? Were you ever involved in that? And how did that come about? I mean, what was the procedures for turning somebody in or ratting on someone, and then what would the brothers do after that?
Well, I think the incident that I'm thinking about is a brother was in a car line going into a drive-in, and the driving was featuring two movies. One was R-rated, and the other one was GP, I guess. And somebody saw him in his car in the car line to go into the movie. So he reported it to the elders, and they gave him a public reproof. And then they had a little talk about some of these movies aren't inappropriate. What used to be considered an X-rated movie is now an R-rated movie, and an R-rated movie is now a PG movie. And then there was a lot of discussion at the time because The Passion of the Christ, Mel Gibson's movie, was an R-rated movie, but it was R-rated because of violence, and they actually showed the scourging of Jesus and the crucifixion of Jesus, and that's why it was an R-rated movie. And we were told, at least in my congregation, don't go to that movie. The Watchtower specifically doesn't want people going to obviously an X-rated movie or a triple X-rated movie, but you can't even go to R-rated movies. No, not all R-rated movies are rated R because of sexual content. A lot of it is just because of just sheer violence. So anyway, that brother that went to the movie, he told me about it. He got reproved over it, and then there was a mocking talk subsequent to that public being reproved. I hope that answers your question.
I have a question. All right, so the guy went to see the R-rated movie, but from what I've heard recently, that viewing kiddie porn, I'm not sure what version of kiddie porn they were referring to, but supposedly if you view kiddie porn, you get kind of a slap on the wrist, basically. But to go into an R-rated movie, you get stronger discipline. Why is that? Why is it okay to view kiddie porn, which is far more dangerous than an R-rated movie ever thought to be in?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Best answer I can give you on that is the Watchtower.
They don't care.
Yeah, just let me finish.
They don't care.
Just let me finish. Yeah. It is my opinion, again, my opinion, that the management or the Watchtower or the governing body, I think they're loaded with pedophiles. We know of Chitty, and we know of Greenleafs. They're known pedophiles. They're on the governing body. There was another one. What was his name? There was three of them that were known pedophiles, and it was also mentioned one time on Six Screens that of the governing body, the only one that had fathered a child was Anthony Morris. Remember Tight Pants Tony, who was disfellowshipped, or as they say now, removed. There was no one that
I remember Tony, yeah.
So my gut is, well, in the Chef at the Flock book, I've never seen it, but Vern had it on TV, and I went through the whole thing with it. If you're looking at child porn, there's a really, really strong chance that you're going to commit pedophilia. It's not like watching regular porn. Some people do it. They think it spices up their sex life at home, and they wouldn't think of going out. But a child, 18 and under, or 16 and under in some states, cannot consent to a sexual activity of any kind because they're a minor. I firmly believe that the Watchtower management and all of the big shots are involved with pedophilia. The very first president of the Watchtower Bellman Tract Society, C.T. Russell, he had a 14-year-old girl that he had relationships with, and it became known, and his wife divorced him. So pedophilia runs all through the Watchtower, and there's no doubt about it. There's no doubt about it. It runs all over.
They claim they're being chosen. They claim they're chosen by God. Really?
Well, I think they're chosen by Satan. Yeah, they're chosen by God. God of this system of things. Satan the devil. That's who chose them. They are. Satan the devil is the father of the lie. And when you start looking at Norway or what they did in Venezuela and other places, they just simply, things that everybody knows is true about shunning. They know that, and about the two-witness rule.
My mom years ago, she had a couple friends. We lived in Fayetteville, North Carolina at the time, and I was young. I was like 7 or 8 years old. It was right around my time my brother was born. My brother was born in 1972, and she had there was a couple friends that I think she met them through my brother's father. I think that's how she met them. My brother's dad was in the military, but anyway, his name was Joe, and I think his wife's name was Thelma, and Mom found out that he was messing with his daughter. And Mom told him, she said, I don't want to see you no more. I don't want anything to do with you practically no more. And because when Mom found that out, she didn't want to be around him no more because he was a pedophile, Mm-hmm. And it wasn't that she didn't like his wife. She did, but his wife kind of stood up for him, not supposedly supporting the pedophilia, but what else? Because I was young at the time, but Mom told me the story, and she said that she had to break it off with them. Not that she didn't care about them or nothing, but she didn't want to be around a pedophile.
Yeah. The Watchtower Bellman Tract Society is absolutely loaded with them, and you would think that it's a magnet for queers, pedophiles, because if you get caught doing something, first of all, if you're a Jehovah's Witness, you believe all the other Jehovah's Witnesses are squeaky clean, which is very, very naive to be like that. But that's how you think, right? So if some elder or some ministerial servant says, "I'm having a bunch of the youths over at my place for camping or for a sleepover, so the youths can all associate with each other." Oh yeah, I'll send my kid. Sure, he's a governing body member, or he's an elder, or he's a ministerial servant. I mean, most of the audience knows I was covering up an adultery when they were asked me to be, or wanted to appoint me an elder. I wouldn't take the position because I didn't want to sit on a judicial, and tell somebody else, I think you should be disfellowshipped. I did the same thing. Go ahead.
What's interesting? Think about this.
Yeah.
You're mentioning the big bosses, the elders, the ministerial servants, and the governing body and stuff. These are big people in the organization. But haven't you noticed that they kind of do the same thing that the world does? I mean, think about a big boss of a corporation who has sex with his secretary, or who has, like the Epstein stuff. I mean, it's all the same. It's like Watchtower's no different. If all this pedophile stuff that's in Watchtower, it's usually, I'm not saying the lower people don't do it, 'cause I'm sure there are some people that are pedophiles that are in the regular group, so to speak. But I think the biggest part of pedophilia sounds like it's more in the upper echelon type of thing, starting with the elders with, oh, I'm an elder. I'll never get in trouble for this because of my position. They think that their positions can allow them to do that garbage, thinking they'll never be caught because they're so high up and all this stuff. And I think that's what happens in the world too. You get big corporations whose, I'm not saying every corporation is like that, but there's a lot of people we've heard over the years that big company founders and big company bigwigs get arrested for pedophilia and molestation and womanizing and all that stuff. And Watchtower sounds like they're doing the exact same thing.
Yeah, thank you, brother. You're absolutely correct. There's my former congregation. I knew of 5 pedophiles, and I just found out last year or two another one that he was molested. He used to work for Rick. There's a lot of it out there, and the elders book will say, if you've committed adultery and you've been an elder for 5 or 6 years or whatever, at least 5 years, and the adultery was more than 5 years ago, and if you still have the respect of the congregation, they can sweep it under the rug. It actually says it right in, right in the elders book. Shepherd the flock book. It's right there.
Yeah.
So
because that's their position. They have a higher position, so yeah, their sins can be overlooked. But oh no, if you're a rank and file and you did the very same thing they did, oh boy, you're going to be kicked out. You're going to be thrown out. You're going to be shunned. You're going to be disfellowshipped. You're going to have the entire book thrown at you.
Well, brother, there is so much discrimination in the Watchtower. In Jesus' day, they brought to Jesus a woman caught in the act of adultery. And we all know the story. They dug a hole, threw her in it, and they said, Master, talking to Jesus, what do we do with her? And they wanted Jesus to say, start stoning her. But what did Jesus say? Jesus said,
He forgave her.
He who without sin cast the first stone. So
yeah,
Jesus wouldn't even judge her. But the point that I wanted to make is, where's the brother or where's the guy that was having sex with her? What happened? They dig a hole and throw him in. So there's so much. If you're a woman, you're going to get treated like crap in the Watchtower. That's just how it is.
Oh, yeah, they are.
If you're a ministerial servant, you can get away with more. If you're an elder, you can get away with almost anything, unless, here's the big caveat, who knows about it? That's one of the biggest things. When you go to the elders and say, this sin has been committed, this wrongdoing was done by so-and-so, first question, who knows about it? Because their first inclination is to cover it up. If it can't be covered up, then they're going to do this fellowshipping, public reproof type of thing, mocking. That's what they do. But I'd like to direct this program back to the Norway thing without touching on this fellowshipping, that much. Isn't it ironic? The Watchtower will tell you that to stay away from Satan, all the governments are controlled by Satan the devil. That's why we don't salute the flag, and that's why we don't vote and all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
Well, so now the Watchtower Bible and Tract Society is kneeling before the governments, begging for the money that they feel they're entitled to. What did C.T. Russell say, the founder of the Watchtower? What did he say? He said, if we have to beg for donations, then we know that our Heavenly Father, he said Jehovah has stopped blessing this organization. Well, our Heavenly Father, I like to call him Jar, but just for this program, we'll call him Jehovah. I like to call him the great I am. But again, for this program, we'll call him Jehovah. They are going, please give us the money, give us the money. We know that you're the harlot, the wild beast, the whore, all that things they call the government, right? But give us your money, give us your money. We need your money. Why are they going to the courts? I often thought it was kind of funny if I know a lot about motorcycles and motorcycle clubs and stuff like that. If you sin against the Jehovah's, the Hell's Angels, one thing they will never, ever, ever do is they'll never go to the police for help. It's against their values. The Watchtower has no values. They tell you how bad the governments are, and yet they kneel in front of them and say, please give us your money. Does that make sense to anybody out there? Star 6.
No, sir, if I may. No, sir, it doesn't make sense. If I could kind of boil this down, I mean, my grandkids are sixth generational from Charles Taze Russell. My question is on this is Matthew chapter 23. Now, Jesus dealt with the cult of his time, which was the scribes and the Pharisees. And if you read Matthew chapter 23, it really raises Jesus Christ's disgust with the cult of his time. And then he said, your house is abandoned to you, and then laid out in Matthew chapter 24 what they were going to get for it. Now, the behavior of the scribes and Pharisees, as I've witnessed for over 65 years, is very similar to that of the scribes and Pharisees. In other words, their behavior, their patterns are acting more like a cult and an evil slave than the faithful slave. Now, I believe what the Bible says. A faithful slave is out there, but the way these men are acting, it can't be it. What do you think, Rich?
I think you're right on. I really do. I think the governing body are the whitewashed graves of our time. They're the ones that are serpents because they lie all the time. And we always know that the father of the lie is Satan and devil. And they lie. Matter of fact, they told the Norwegian court that family members do not shun disfellowship people. We know that's a lie because they most certainly do. And they had documentation to prove that their attorney was a liar. It was an absolute total liar. You know, the one thing that I was just thinking about this morning when I was kind of going over notes for this program is you got these televangelists, you know, people like Benny Hinn and Kenneth Copeland, Michael Murdoch. There's hundreds of them, right? They're all billionaires, or millionaires, multimillionaires. Kenneth Copeland has a fleet of it, has a whole squadron of his own jet planes to take him around. And these people are filthy rich. And yet there have been programs on TV exposing them. I saw a 60-minute program 30 years ago on Benny Hinn and all the trickery he uses and all the people that come up, you know, hobbling on one leg, and then he blesses them or whatever he does, and they start running around the stage. They were all paid actors. And they're all paid. And yet everybody knows Benny Hinn is a scam artist. All these faith healers, they're all scam artists. They're all filthy rich. And yet people that are intelligent, college grads or whatever, they go to these crusades and they go in there and they drop their $100, $200 bills in the collection box. And yet people know it's out there that this person's a fraud. And it's easy to see their past videos of these people. It's easy to see, the 60 Minutes did a a deep investigation of Benny Hinn and what a fraud he is. Yet he packs our stadiums all over the world, and he makes billions of dollars. The Watchtower is doing the same thing.
No business like it.
Go ahead.
There's no business like it.
Yeah, really. You know, it seemed to me the way
business like show business.
Yeah, my gut feeling
No
is
business like show business.
yeah. If you
I want to wish you both a happy Valentine's Day.
well, thank you. Do you like my red shirt, my red jacket? I'm wearing a red jacket for that. It looks pink in the thing, but it's bright red. At least in the video I've got.
Look,
And also, since you were in the military and you've mentioned motorcycle gangs,
Yeah.
I would hope that you would give our listeners a safe sex message. I'm going to do it for you.
Go
I'm
ahead.
going to say that if you're
I
sober
think that's
like
what
me, you don't have a problem. If you're happily married like those two, you don't have a problem. But if you're leaving the Watchtower and you're single and you haven't been out in the big world, please, condoms and latex gloves, and wrap it up and get to know the person. And you can stay celibate until you marry the person in the big world too. That's my message.
Well, we thank you for that. We thank you for that. I'm not going to elaborate on that at all, but thank you. I think that's
God did give everybody a conscience. Okay, God gave everybody a conscience. We know the difference between right and wrong. Now you get into these cults or you get into these organizations, and what happens is they start taking your conscience away from you, and they start picking at all the little things that people do, and they make you feel like a sinner. It could be this or that or the other thing. It doesn't matter. But you get caught up. You get so caught up in the pharisaical things of the organization that you forget who you are as a person, and you forget God gave you a conscience to know by yourself what is right and what is wrong. And all you need is Jesus then, just to forgive your sins, and it's over. It's done. Finished.
Well, thank you, brother, for that. And I probably already mentioned this earlier in the program, but the lawyer for the Watchtower is telling the telling the Supreme Court of Norway that and I'm quoting right now, shunning is not a concept that the JWs accept. Well, it's been there since the early 50s. If three elders decide they don't like you, then you're going to be disfellowshipped. I guess I'm hearing 2 years on some cases, but your punishment in the JWs has a lot to do with your position. If you're if you contribute heavily to your congregation, there's a great chance that you won't, if you've done something wrong, let's just say it's adultery. They'll, he supports the Kingdom Hall. He does this, he does that. We'll just give him private reproof. You get some 20-year-old newlywed that cheats on his wife, and he's not a ministerial servant or an elder, and he doesn't do much at the Kingdom Hall. Oh, let's just fellowship him. We can tell he's not repentant. It's
Rich, may I interject a question?
Sure.
You know what this sounds like? This sounds like, God.
Hey, Donald, hold on 1 second. Donald, there's some other people on here that were talking before you came in. So if you could kind of just listen before you come in, because there's some other people trying to get through. So if you could do that, that would be good. Let that other man. Go ahead, sir. You were before Donald.
My name is Chris. I'm calling from Arizona.
Hi, Chris.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Hey. I've been listening for a while. It's fine. I really appreciate you guys. I've called into Rick's program a couple of times before, and also into Anne Marie's program once or twice. I'm very rarely able to listen to you guys live, so I really appreciate this opportunity. But I just wanted to express to you, I know it's not totally on topic, but you guys, okay, let me give you a quick background, I guess. I basically served from 1984 to 2002 as a ministerial servant and an elder. So I've got some background in this and that, but you guys, for me, Rick, you, Constance. Oh, by the way, I hope Constance gets feeling better. I truly do. And other callers, like Donald, and I'm just picking a few out. I picked the King of Dots. It goes on and on of intelligent, thoughtful callers that help me each day to get over what has been some years in the past. And I'm not suffering under it. I'm now what I consider to be a truly born again Christian. So it all worked out. A couple of things that you touched on was, telling on each other, and as a ministerial servant, and especially as an elder, if there's a snitch culture, is what I call it, cattle telling, this and that. So many people tried to take me down as an elder, and they were all kind of like phony, false accusations, and I survived. I eventually relinquished my eldership, without I wasn't under any scrutiny, this and that. I just typed or filled out a letter and said, hey, I can't take this anymore. But I was born in, raised in, and that kind of thing. So, but I really appreciate so much this program, what Rick does, what you do, Dick and Constance, Anne Marie. So many programs you guys do that just keep me chugging along. I listen to it because, I don't know, like digging into the past, but yeah, to a certain extent, but it's so helpful to me what all of you folks do at the 6 Screens to keep me sane and balanced. And I want to thank you.
Well, I want to thank you, Chris, for for those kind words. It's very encouraging to us, because sometimes you always ask yourself after you do a program, I wonder if anybody heard this, or did it make any kind of a difference in somebody's life? I know that 2,000 or 3,000 people will hear this, what we're doing, and it gives me a really wonderful feeling, because I had PTSD from being a Jehovah's Witness for 20 years. And being on the offensive side, like we are right now, casting a bright light into the darkness of the Watchtower, is cathartic. It makes you, every time my program is over, be over tonight around 8, I go to bed, I'm happy as heck. I really am happy. I feel blessed. I love the fact that Rick Ferrin gave me this program to do. I'll be eternally grateful to him for that. And every time we do this program, especially it bonds me and Connie. We have a wonderful marriage. It's just absolutely a wonderful marriage. When we do a program together and it's over, it's like we're smiling the whole rest of the night. And I know we're helping people. I don't know who they are. I don't get much feedback, except for someone like yourself, Chris. That was very appreciated. But we don't get a whole lot of feedback. People don't write us letters and say, if it wasn't for your program, I'd still be in the cult. But thank you for saying that. It's encouraging.
Well, sir, you're helping so many of us. Thank you.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you, Chris. We love you.
Yep. There's my wife yelling in from the bed. She said her pajamas. She says, "Well, I want to go on the screen and I'm in my pajamas."
All right. God bless all of you.
Well, thank you so much. Can you imagine? It's just like the story of me trying to convince somebody that I was a great athlete, and I hit 2 Grand Slam home runs, in a World Series game, which can easily be checked. These governing body members and these lawyers will tell a lie that's so blatantly a lie, and they know they're going to get caught, but they can't help themselves. They try to tell the Norwegian court that this fellowshipping does not affect the family in any way. To the contrary, I have 2 sons that haven't talked to me in 20 years. It just, of course it does. And there's tons of records for that. You know, just star 6. There was a person wanted to call after Chris. Come on. I would like to know how you feel about. I watch all these YouTubes, and they're outstanding. This guy, John Ledger, him and his wife, boy, they put us some outstanding, really outstanding content on YouTube. He does tremendous research, deep. That guy could have been a lawyer or a psychologist. He could have went to college and had a double major and graduated with a 4.0. This guy is sharp. And there's others too. Vern from Canada, and there are other really good YouTube sites. But here at Six Screens.
John Lord has also written a couple of books.
Yes, he has. A Broken Mirror, I think.
Author. And his show was very good this week. JW Analyzer is the title of the show. Mm-hmm. And also Vern with Fixing My Faith is the title. Mm-hmm. He said there's going to be an HBO special. So that may reach some people that are still inside.
Well, I really hope so, because now you can see it on TV. Where before, when I came in 1970, there wasn't any of this content on TV. I know Barbara Anderson had her program on it. That was like 30 years ago. I think that was the first glimmer into what the Watchtower is all about. Just thinking of lies that they have told. I'm watching YouTube, and here comes Stephen Lett. Brothers, we're living in the last days of this wicked system of things. Actually, we're living in the last hours of this terrible system. Actually, we're the last seconds. It's probably going to be here tomorrow, right? And so, you stay close to the organization. That's where the safety is. And now they come on another governing body members. What the heck is his name?
Jeffrey Winder.
Jeffrey Winder.
Winder, like Windows.
The Black Glasses.
Yeah, and he's a real wimpy type of guy. Anyway, he comes on. Connie's laughing. He comes on, and he's saying, the new system might not be here in our lifetime. Armageddon might not be here in our lifetime. You got one governing body member saying, we're in the last seconds of the last seconds of the last seconds of this wicked system. Then you got another governing body member, still on YouTube, and probably filmed within two months of each other. And what's he saying? It might not come in our lifetime. So, and you would think people would catch on and leave. When Armageddon didn't come in 1975, a lot of people that could use their brain, it wasn't, wasn't locked into Watchtower theology. They left because they recognized it as being a false prophet and a liar. And a lot of them didn't like this shunning stuff. Go ahead, sister.
You had mentioned the tribal element of motorcycle clubs.
Yep.
And I think you made a good analogy, because a lot of people stay in for their family. It's kind of like an extortion racket, They're staying in because they don't want to lose their family. And I think there's more people in the seats, in all these towns around the world that are thinking, what is this? Who are these people? What is going on? They remind me of the scribes and Pharisees. But they've got to be thinking the same thoughts that I was thinking as a teen and a 20-something when I left. They've got to be thinking the same things that you were thinking when you left. Mm-hmm. But they don't want to lose their family. Now, that's not Christianity. That's not kindness. That's not forgiveness. That's not accepting of people. That's exactly the opposite of that. That's something they do in a Godfather show.
Yeah, that's coercion. That's what it is. You stay in, or you're not going to be punished.
Didn't Jesus said, "Don't be with extortioners"? That's what extortion is.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely correct.
So I
Yes.
just have compassion for everybody because I know some of those people are trapped in there.
Well, one of the things that the lawyer for the Watchtower told the Norway Grant Supreme Court is that they don't disfellowship or remove minors, and that their families will stay intact. Well, we know that's not true. They're baptizing people. Go ahead.
I've known situations where minors were kicked out of their homes.
Yeah. It depends on the state. I think I know in Massachusetts, you're not considered an adult till you're 18. But I suppose if you've got a young brother, let's say he's 15 or 16 years old, and he has sex with his girlfriend, they kick him out of the family. He's got to work. That means whatever grade he's in, maybe the 10th or 11th grade, that's as far as he goes in high school. He's doomed for life. He's absolutely doomed for life. I mean, there are people that have been successful.
That's the way it is now. It used to be a young person could get some kind of job and have some kind of apartment, even if it was the smallest apartment on earth. With the way rent is now, these kids are kicked into the street.
Yeah.
And that doesn't give them a wholesome life at all. Doesn't give them wholesome choices either.
Well, I alluded to earlier in the program, this woman, they were going to stone her to death. So Jesus says, I'm not going to judge you. Go and sin no more. That was her penalty.
That's right.
Go and sin no more.
That's right. That's right. Forgiveness is supposed to be an immediate thing, as it was in that case. It's not supposed to be sit in the back of the room for 2 years. That is not Christian. My dad would often say that this fellowshipping arrangement was not Christian.
It isn't. As a matter of fact, they said in the 50s that the Catholic Church had their excommunication people, and to be excommunicated by the Catholic Church and have anything to do with having sex or anything else, if you talked against the church, they could excommunicate you, and then you were not allowed to receive any of the sacraments. But the Catholic Church didn't tell your siblings and your parents or your children not to talk to them. Otherwise, you'd be disfellowshipped. And of course, in the JW law, being disfellowshipped means you have absolutely no chance of ever living on paradise earth if Armageddon was to come when you're still alive. So it's just a form of coercion. Star 6.
Yeah, you're right, because I had a lot of Catholic neighbors growing up in the old neighborhood, and they didn't have to leave their family circle at all. So you're absolutely spot on there.
Something that I think I bring it up a lot on Six Screens every 6 months or every year, because I like to think the Holy Spirit is telling me what to say. And right now I feel like a little quick story. I had a sister-in-law who was baptized Jehovah's Witness, a former pioneer for a number of years, and then she got sick and tired of the Watchtower. She put a Santa Claus on her lapel, and she went to work. And one of the elders in her congregation saw the Santa Claus on her lapel, and he called her into a judicial meeting. She didn't go. They called her into another one. She didn't go. A third one, she didn't go. They just fellowshipped her. And she was, I think, about 20, 21, somewhere in that range right there. And we used to have her come over and babysit for us. At the time, my boys were 3 years apart. They were like 5 and 3, something like that, 5 and 2. And they loved their Aunt Mabel. They just really loved her. She was a real sweet person. But she didn't want to be a Jehovah's Witness anymore. So when she didn't go to the third judicial meeting, they disfellowshipped her. So we tell our boys, I know it's hard for you to understand, but we're not going to be seeing Aunt Mabel any longer. and they cried and they're upset. And then 6 months later, they come out with an article in the Watchtower. It says, show love to erring ones. Have them over for dinner. Be kind to them. You can talk to them now. So Aunt Mabel comes over. Well, yay, everything's wonderful. And then maybe 4 or 5 months after that, they came out with that article was wrong because it was written by Ray Franz, who was an apostate.
I know.
But if you know how this stuff works, is that there's a writing committee and there's like 12 people on it, and anything that ends up in the Awake magazine or the Watchtower magazine is proofread, whatever, proofread. Sorry, folks. By the governing body. So, I mean, if you'd know that was a lie too, but they said that Ray Franz wrote the article and he's an apostate. So we're going to go back to shunning. But here's the point. If our Heavenly Father's Holy Spirit was using the governing body as the discreet and slave, and everything that the governing body does is at the behest of Jehovah God, how can at one time they can be disfellowshipped and then they did away with disfellowshipping and shunning, then they reinstated it. I mean, it doesn't make any sense. It's like one of the reasons I was going to walk out of my baptism.
It's because I say so thinking.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And nobody.
Well, I hope so much. I pray and hope so much for you that you get to see your sons. And maybe John Lagarde's book, you could maybe give those to your sons and maybe you could all get back together someday. I'm so glad that I went back to do my parents' care. It was my honor to do it.
Well, that was good of you to do that too. And, nobody stays on this earth forever. And
people can change their mind, and you and I know there's nothing like family.
Well, when I came into the Watchtower, when I started studying, I never heard anything about disfellowshipping. Not a single thing. Till I was in for 6 months or so, and they had an announcement. They had an announcement. The first time I even knew there was such a thing as disfellowshipping is they reinstated somebody, and everybody got up and clapped. They stood up and they clapped. They don't do that anymore. You don't clap if somebody gets reinstated. Yeah, but when I was in, when I first came in, I said, "What's everybody clapping about?" "Oh, brother so-and-so has been reinstated." I said, "What did he do?" Like some kind of sin. We don't know, but the elders know. Yeah. So that's how.
But from a young age, I guess the person would get disfellowshipped, and then he'd argue with the elders in the parking lot. And in that case, the young man had gotten disfellowshipped for smoking cigarettes. And in Virginia, at one time I was about the only person I knew that didn't smoke, because this is Virginia, and that was a cash crop.
Yeah.
And that from Carolina.
Yeah.
And so I remember at a young age getting real, almost violent in the parking lot, saying this doesn't make sense, and trying to figure it out as a kid. And most of it's never made sense.
Well, you get how about the crucifixion? Jesus died on a cross as opposed to a torture stake. In C.T. Russell's time, he died on a cross. And all through history, all the religions of the world, as far as I know, they all believed that Jesus died on a crucifixion. He was crucified on a cross. Then Rutherford comes along and he goes, "Nope, wasn't. He was on a torture stake." Well, science has proven that he died on a cross. But if you go to an elder, let's say in the 60s, and you said, "Brother Elder, I don't believe that Jesus died on a torture stake. I believe he died on a cross." Well, you're going against what the governing body says. You would be disfellowshipped.
You know, the
Go ahead.
harp of God in the 1920s depicted the cross.
Yeah, in a
And
crown.
since my dad was a Bible student and then a witness until he died at 93, he knew this, and we discussed this, and he had a more balanced view as he was an old man, and we would talk about these things, and he'd say, well, what did you find out at the library? Let me know. And I found Penton's book and so forth. And then I had a chat with a friend of mine who's gone now, who was a special effects man. And we talked about all kinds of gory things that they put in the movies, you know.
Mhm.
And he knew about the cross versus stake argument. And he says, well, maybe he did die on a stake, you know, and we talked about the symptoms. And it was gory, but it was accurate. I said, you know, Hollywood tries to be as accurate as possible. I said, but you know, they're missing the point. The point is that he was the Redeemer and died to cover the sins of the world, not what kind of instrument was used to kill him.
Yeah.
And my friend said, well, yeah, that's true. He says, I don't get into religion much, but you know, my friend did die a Christian, and he'd been a very secular person. So it was fun to discuss that with him in terms of how Hollywood does things and what the facts may or may not be. But, you know, the witnesses missed the point on that one in a big way.
Very, very true.
Well, you remember too that the Jehovah's Witnesses don't believe that Jesus is their mediator. So the average witness, from what I've read and heard on videos, they're just holding on to the so-called coattails of the governing body, because the governing body is quote anointed and Jesus is their mediator, but there's no mediator for the average witness.
That's a new teaching. They used to teach that Christ was the mediator. I grew up believing Christ was my mediator.
Me too.
When the governing body came in, and when they've become now these pop stars in their own mind, this has changed things. And I talk to people that are still in, and they're like, oh, that's not true. Jesus is the mediator. And I'm like, go to jw.org and key in mediator and read what it says. It's shocking, but most of the rank and file haven't even read their own material.
Yeah.
You know, I would tell anyone that is wondering if they're in a cult or if they're in the Watchtower's truth. There are so many good videos out there today. You know, it was alluded to a couple of times. John Ledger's JW Analyzer is absolutely outstanding, but there's a lot of other ones that are really, really good. What is wonderful about Six Screens is people get a chance to talk. I went through, most people know, I went through the Vietnam War as a Marine, and I saw some stuff. And I went 10 years to vet groups for PTSD. So I know something about it. The PTSD from the Jehovah's Witnesses is tremendous. You're always living in fear of Armageddon. It's going to be so bad that if the days weren't cut short, no flesh would survive. And there are people that don't realize that they had that hanging over their heads forever. They can't really plan a future. They can just plan on going out and field service every Saturday. It's a horrible life. Your life is always on hold. You can't ever make anything of yourself. You can't go to college. You can't go to a good trade school after high school, even if they allow you to go to high school. If you went to an elder and said, I'm planning on quitting high school now that I'm 16 and Pioneer. Oh, that's wonderful, brother. That's just wonderful. But, you know, down the road, when you find that nice sister and you get married, you want to have a family, you're not gonna do well washing windows and shampooing carpets and painting houses. You're gonna have to have something upstairs in your brain. Star 6. Anybody want to make a comment?
Rich.
Well, look at.
Hey, Brother Borghi. This is
Yeah.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
This is Stephen. Just want to say hello.
you and your dear wife. I'm enjoying your show. You reminded me of something. You talked about John, and I'm sorry I can never remember his last name. I always call him Beth's husband. But in any event, he did a video fairly recently that really brought back to my mind something, and that is the intentional ambiguity in the Watchtower teaching. And he went on to sort of dissect a video from one of these newer governing body idiots, where basically he starts off talking about how we don't need, rules for every single little thing. We can just use conscience and be conscious of principles. And then the second half of the talk is all about rules and why you need rules and why they're important. So two completely diametric things, rules versus principles. And so he was just talking about how crazy that is. I'm going to use the word schizophrenic, how schizophrenic that is that you have these two opinions that you put forth in the talk. You walk away from the talk and you're probably confused. Well, which one is it? Is it rules or is it not rules? Because you basically put forth both of them on the same level. And then that made me think about a Watchtower, talking about ambiguity. When I was Pee-mee, this was a little bit before I woke up, and it was a Watchtower on the topic of essentially who rules the congregations or who's in charge of the congregation. And in the first half of the Watchtower, it was clear that they were making the point that Jesus is the one who runs the congregations. They are all under his charge and care. And then the second half, it says the elders are the ones who rule the congregations, and they're the ones who have congregations in their care. And this one particular brother on this paragraph, they raised the question on the paragraph, he raised his hand. Now, this is a brother who always gives well thought out comments in his own words. He doesn't repeat anything in the lesson. It's always in his own words, always. This particular time, he read verbatim what the article said about who runs the congregations, and it said the congregations are run by Jesus. He literally read what it said, and he handed the microphone back. The elder who was conducting the lesson, which wasn't our regular, Watchtower overseer, he got panicked. He got this panic look, and his eyes started darting around the congregation, and he was looking for some elder. So an elder raised his hand, and he said, well, that's not really true. The elders are the ones that run the congregation. Now, mind you, he read what the article said. And an elder said, no, that's not. So the brother raised his hand again. And everybody in the congregation is looking because it's like, what the hell is going on here? The article literally says what this brother said. He literally just read it. He didn't, introduce some kind. So they ignored him and they wouldn't call on him anymore during the entire Watchtower lesson. And he didn't make a scene. He didn't jump up and comment anyway. He didn't do any of that. He raised his hand. They wouldn't call him. He put his hand back down. About 2 weeks later, this other elder who wasn't even at that meeting, he was away giving a talk. He goes up to give what I now know is a marketing talk. I have heard of marketing talks, but I'd never actually heard one in person, and none of my friends had ever heard one either. And he was going on talking about if a person stands and says that elders don't control the congregation, then this person is to be marked and blah, blah, blah. And he went on through a whole thing. And I made up my mind right then and there that I need to start leaving this organization because there is something way off here. The article literally gave two completely different points all in one article. If anybody with half a brain would have read that, they would have said, wait a minute, you're saying two completely different things. Which one is it? This is confusing. You're saying on one hand A, then on the other hand, you're saying Z. Which one is it? And I began to start really paying attention to how these Watchtower articles and other things were written. And they literally put forth two completely diametric ideas. It's almost like they're schizophrenic. I don't know if anybody else noticed that because I don't know when everybody left. But this got to be a regular thing.
Stefan, I've noticed these things for years and learned that it's called neuro-linguistic programming and learned that it's called, what was the other?
Cognitive dissonance?
They're tricks. They're tricks that are used in advertising and mind manipulation.
Mm-hmm. Right.
You know what this
and I'll tell you this last point, and that was something that was very strange to me, and I started to notice this over the years. I would study my Watchtower, because a lot of times I was the reader, so I studied my Watchtower 2-3 times to be ready. And I would read every single paragraph. I would read every scripture in the paragraph. And you know how some scriptures are cited and others are quoted. Well, obviously you're going to read the quoted ones because they're quoted. But I'd also read the cited ones. And I begin to notice that a lot of the cited scriptures in the Watchtower do not tie back to the Watchtower. And I remember even saying to my then wife, a lot of these verses don't have any reference to the paragraph. And she completely went off the deep end. Well, they wouldn't be in the paragraph and blah, blah, blah. I'm fit from discreet slave and they know more than you and blah, blah, blah. So we go to the meeting and our regular, God, I just had it, Watchtower overseer, when we got to this one paragraph, he said, you know, this verse is listed or cited in the paragraph. He says, I read this verse 7 ways to Sunday, and I do not understand how it ties back to the paragraph. Does anybody here understand how it ties back to the paragraph? And he looked around and nobody, 100 people, nobody raised their hand to comment on this verse because it didn't tie in. And so I looked at my then wife, and she, of course, is looking at me real sheepish, like, oh, sorry. And so he says, well, I don't understand. We're going to move on from that one. What about this one? And everybody raised their hand, and then they commented. So I began to also notice, how are you referencing Bible verses that don't even tie back to the paragraph? What the hell is going on? You know, and this is what I was thinking to myself. Is this stuff like AI generated almost? And maybe verses have changed as they constantly reproduce their Bibles. So a verse that, you know, it used to be Isaiah 1:7, now it's Isaiah 1:5, but they still quote 7, and when you read 7, it doesn't tie back. I have no idea what was going on, but it really gave me the impression that we were being deceived and tricked, and that they were just kind of making this stuff up, you know, as they went along.
They're messing with your head.
Mm-hmm.
They know how to do that,
Yeah.
and they're doing it on purpose by design. And keep this in mind. There is a wonderful, you remember when you were in elementary school, if you went to a public school?
Barely.
Okay, but let's say the public school. There's different classrooms in the public school. Some students are the C students, and they have a classroom. Some students are the A students. They have a classroom. Some students are super bright, and they get a special lab with gizmos and motors and things to play with. So we were in a room with no windows. You and I were in the wrong classroom.
Yeah, you know, just to comment a little bit on you read a Watchtower and you don't get it. They don't really want you to get it. They want you to be confused. So when they tell you that the governing body tells you something, you're not smart enough to get it, but you have to listen to the governing body. And I wanted to follow up on the point that I was trying to make just a little while ago on PTSD, that, you know, people who have been in the Watchtower for a long, long time, and they're thinking about Armageddon in their subconscious. These are not happy people. These are not happy people. And the Watchtower try to tell you they're the happiest people in the world. It's just the opposite. They're not. They're not the happiest people in the world. And PTSD.
Well, you know, when you were talking about the Jesus thing and the elders thing, as you were mentioning that, it kind of hit me that to them, when it said that Jesus rules the congregation, no, the elders rule the congregation. I think what this is, to them, Jesus is the figurehead. The real rulers are those elders in the governing body.
Oh, yeah.
It's the figurehead. Now,
Absolutely correct. They are. And they would take the glory for themselves. Now what they're doing is when they go out and they shake hands to the everyday rank and file Jehovah's Witness, oh, brother elder, governing body, sign my Bible. Oh, yes, he signs the Bible. Right, kind of reminds me of Shula, Swaggart. I'm sorry, his name is Swaggart, and I used to watch him on TV a lot. And you could buy a Bible off of him for $100, but if you wanted an autographed Bible signed by Jimmy Swaggart, it cost you an extra $500. And if you wanted his son and his grandson's signature in it, that'd cost you $700. I mean, it's a money making thing. And that's why the Watchtower is in Norway lying like crazy, so they'll get the money from Satan's organization, which they claim all the governments are, but they want the money from them. Whatever happened to money? They got $7 billion sitting in Ireland, but are they going to help
But
some JW who's
if
pioneering?
it's really being ruled by God, doesn't God say something about that you shouldn't go? I mean, I don't know if it says. I don't think it says anything in the Bible, maybe per se, about going after Satan's money. But it seems like if they believe that it's all satanic, then they're mixing with Satan. They're dealing with Satan themselves. So they're not asking God for the money. They're going to Satan.
Not to store treasures on earth.
Yeah. You're right. They're going after.
If they believe in Jehovah so much, why aren't they asking Jehovah for the money? I mean, I'm not saying God would give it to them, but there again, if they claim to be Christian, yet they're going to the devil because they claim the government's all Satan. So in their eyes, it's the devil. So they're dealing with the devil. So they're actually dancing with the devil. They're actually in bed with the devil.
I think you've got a tryst going there with the devil and the Scarlet Harlot, the UN.
Yeah.
And this is nothing new for them. And they had Christianity almost right in about 1998. They had stories about the first century church, and they had a beautiful cover of, Jesus' resurrection and the women that were there. And they had it right for about 10 minutes. And then something happened. They wrote Jesus out of the script, and they put themselves on television.
Yeah.
And it became very, very different after that. It's all about because I say so, and it's not Bible, and it's fallen far afield, and the greater number will cool off.
So true. So true.
Rich?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, hear just fine.
Oh, this is Junction Guy from Tennessee. I was calling in reference to the scripture about Jesus telling the woman, "Go and sin no more."
Yeah.
That scripture. I don't know if you mentioned it or if you know, but that's one of the scriptures the New World Translation deleted in the silver one.
Johnny,
In the black, before that, black paperback in there, but with some kind of a, explanation wasn't in some of the early or whatever their reasoning. But that's one of the scriptures they deleted.
Yeah, you definitely make a good point. We bring that up a lot on Six Screens, that the Watchtower deletes scriptures and adds to it, not just John 1:1, but John 8 about the woman, being stoned. That was the beginning of John 8:1. It was all about the woman being stoned. They took those first 11 scriptures out, and they start John 8, and it starts with verse 11. They just took it out of the Bible. And the book of Revelation says that if you take something, if anybody changes any of the meanings of the Bible, that they would be cursed. Well, the Watchtower is cursed, and their members are starting to see how bad it is. If you go on YouTube, there are so many good channels, which is what is exceptional about Six Screens is that anybody can call in, and it's a big therapy session. And I can tell you, as a person that was in therapy for 10 years due to PTSD, that some people, they can't afford to go to therapy, or they don't want to go to therapy, or they don't think they need it. You listen to Six Screens over the years, and boy, you'll get a really good understanding on psychology, on legalism, and on deception. If you listen to Six Screens with the different callers that will call up and tell you their little stories. I think, Rick Ferrin and Sue Ferrin have blessed a lot of people with Six Screens. A lot of people are living happier lives because of Six Screens. And I would say, if you want to be knowledgeable, go to JW Examiner and XJW Examiner, and just go on there. This guy's brilliant. John Ledger's his name. He's not the only one that has really good content, but to me, he's outstanding. Yeah, the name of the program is XJW Examiner.
No, analyzer.
Analyzer. My wife has corrected me in 1 year. Yeah. Okay. All right. Star 6. Someone want to comment on our program tonight? Especially a new caller would be great. Go ahead,
Yeah,
please.
that's one thing that I've noticed is that I just can't get down with it anymore because Jesus is just left out of the picture totally, And when I try to tell some of my friends that are still in it, they don't want to have anything to say about that, but it's like they have left Jesus out of the picture totally, and when you go to the memorial, you're not even taking the emblems, you're just like bypassing them, it's just doesn't seem right to me.
Well, you're correct.
I'm not gonna share that.
I would say if you went on YouTube tonight, there was a really good program on who C.T. Russell was and how he got his start. And a lot was said about 1914. We all thought that came from Russell's head and measuring the diameter of the pyramids and stuff like that. It didn't. It came way before. There was other people. It actually went way back to Isaac Newton. He was quite, we all think of him as the guy who discovered gravity, but he was a theologian in the nth degree, and his writings are quite famous. Anyway, C.T. Russell borrowed and plagiarized a lot of his work, and a lot of people think that C.T. Russell was a brilliant man. He wasn't. He was a con man. There's a lot of really good there's a good program right now on YouTube about the United Nations. It goes into all the details and all the lies that the Watchtower told. Oh, we had to be members because we needed a library card. That was a bold-faced lie, and it's so provable. And you got some people that done really good research. It's on YouTube. You ought to go check it out, learn about it, and pass it on. I would really. I know me and Connie feel great. We were in the cult for 20 years, and anytime we can expose who they are, it's wonderful. But when people
my good friend, I am a direct descendant of Robert Newton. His father, his grandfather was Robert Newton, and his great uncle was Thomas Newton, and I'm a descendant of the biological father of Sir Isaac Newton. And also, as I told you, my grandkids are sixth generation Newtons, but it goes back, you're absolutely correct. Isaac Newton wrote 4 million pages on theocracy. He only wrote 200,000 pages on science because he was using science and mathematical equation to prove the existence of God. And now his papers were discovered in the 1950s. And the Newton Project is published, and you're absolutely 100% correct. Isaac Newton, by my standards, and reading what he wrote about everything, he authored what we would call the Watchtower. That was 400 years ago. You, sir, are so correct. What I see the governing body doing by personal experience, and I can give you personal experience, is that they are just borrowing light to the true faithful slave that's in the field. They're not in a posh headquarters or anything like that. And the light that they have, I personally written articles dealing with deep prophecy that the organization had to use to correct its unfaithful integrity of prophecy of what was getting ready to happen. Now, they're getting oil from people outside of the governing body because they're not spiritually smart enough anymore to read the Bible. It's all a corporate scam. And what is going to happen, and they don't realize it, and I'm encouraging all Jehovah's Witnesses to hang on to your faith in God and the Bible, because the Watchtower and Bible and Tract Society is getting ready to be destroyed with the approval of God himself. That's all I got to say. I'll listen to what you got to say.
Well, I concur with you 100% on that. There's just so much damning information. It's coming in buckets right now. I watch YouTube all the time, and there's a whole bunch of channels and a whole bunch of people that are on there telling about their track in the Watchtower. And when you listen to them and then you hear what the lawyer for the Watchtower is trying to convince the court of, they're 100%, I mean, they're 180 from each other, 180 degrees opposite. They're just opposite. And the lies are just going to catch up with them in one big bundle. I mean, we all know about 1975. They said Armageddon will be there in the fall of 75. I believed it. Didn't happen. It's a false prophet. What did they do with the false prophet and nation of Israel? They stoned them. If you said, you go over this mountain, Jehovah told me to tell you that if you go over this mountain, there's a nice big lake that you can quench your thirst. And you go over the mountain and there's nothing but dirt, you get stoned on the spot because you said Jehovah told me to tell you. And they're always saying Jehovah trusts us with these new dress code. Well, why does Jehovah have to trust anybody? It's crazy. These people, these 11 governing body members, they are professional liars. They're hypocrites. They could give a damn less about anybody's life or their happiness. They care about the bottom line. And the bottom line is there's $7 billion in assets that they control in a hedge fund in Ireland. That's a fact. And you have a person that spent 30 or 40 years working at Bethel, working his tail off. And they tell him, we're going to assign you to the field. We're going to send you back to your whole congregation, and they'll take good care of you. No, they won't. They don't even know your name. Everybody that you knew when you left for Bethel 40 or 30 years ago, you're forgotten. We had a brother that came on, and Barbara Anderson had him on one of her programs, and he went to prison instead of being drafted. And when he came back, nobody shook his hand, and he wanted to go back to being a ministerial servant. Oh no, you got to prove yourself worthy to us. The guy just went to prison for the Watchtower, and he's got to prove himself to the elders. Yeah, for 2 years. This organization is wacky. They have rules for thee and rules for me and rules for thee, and they're not the same. You would think a governing body member.
Really.
Say again, please.
Really, it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking.
Yeah. I think
it's heartbreaking. The people that like you say, the brother went to prison for, taking a stand that was told was a virtuous thing to do, and then he didn't get anything out of that. That's heartbreaking.
Yeah, and he's a felon forever. Unless he gets a job, work for himself, nobody's going to employ him.
No, the economic impact, not only the deaths from the blood policy, but the economic impact on the rank and file, that's never really been adequately reported on. And it's worldwide, too. We forget, we think, just the States or the East Coast or the American South. And we don't realize that this kind of treatment is in all these countries. We don't even have a lens to know, how is this affecting people in Africa or the central countries of Europe or anything. It's, everybody worldwide is affected by these inequalities.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
Stupid policies.
I remember not that long ago when I ordered a car from the factory, and it was just a 2-door. And, Brother Borghi, that's not a good look. It's not a good service car, only having a 2-door car. And yet, Jeffrey Jackson is driving a $500,000 Bentley. Talk about the showy displays of one's means of life. He also got.
I'd like one of those too.
Yeah.
I'd like one of those too. We all would. I think it should be like Oprah. Take that money out of Ireland and just give everybody a Bentley.
Yeah, well, I mean, what I think they should have done, when you got these brothers that worked their tails off at Bethel for 30, 40 years, and we'll give you a bus ticket to go home. That's it. They get nothing. Why not dip into that $7 billion for a worker that's worked for you for 40 years and give them maybe $100,000 to, and that's not a whole lot of money these days. It's just not. So he can get himself an apartment.
They don't even give them a $2,000 severance. They give them nothing when they leave.
Yeah.
And some of these poor pioneers need a meal. I've seen this with my, having cake in my home, and they couldn't wait to get a second piece of cake. And some of these sisters and brothers that pioneer their whole life, they're barely making it. And I asked the elder if I could help the people with their paperwork so that they could get their SNAP and EBT cards and things. I said, does anyone need my help? I'll help them as a project, with their paperwork, filling out the paperwork. Oh no, well, we really haven't discussed that. We got the paperwork so they can get help, but.
Yeah, if they want help, they can go to the Catholic Church, right? They send them to the Catholic Church. They want, getting back to, because Anne Marie had it on her program. One of her grandkids said, "Talk about cars," and it came into my mind that what's his name out there, Judge Rutherford. He's got the most expensive car you can buy. He's got 2 16-cylinder Cadillacs during the Depression when people were selling apples for a penny each. And he's driving around.
Oh, I know.
Yeah. I mean, and they're not embarrassed by it. All these governing body members have beautiful homes. They have nice living. They have the best of everything. They really do.
Have silk ties, brother. They have silk ties, and they're haughty. They are haughty.
Well, there is a scripture about the showy displays of one's means of life. And you know what? They don't care what you think because they bamboozled enough people. What they really want they want donations from you. They want your labor to build kingdom halls that they're going to sell 5 years down the road. And most of all, what they want from you is when you die, they want, if you're fortunate enough to be able to own a house, they want you to will it.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do.
Hey, Dick.
Yes.
Is it open line still?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I wanted to say the whole time you're talking, I'm thinking of all the delusionalism going on, people in Watchtower. The last time I met one of the witnesses, I've been faded for 20 years now, and this one was, he donated a lot of money. He was like 87 years old. One of the witnesses, I've been faded for 20 years now. Excellent. And this one was, he donated a lot of money. He was like 87 years old.
Okay.
One at a time, please.
King of Dots, you've got a King of Dots. King of Dots, you got to shut your TV. All right, he'll be back with us. He had his TV on, Dick. You can't do that. You can't have your TV on. Yep.
If there's anyone who would like to call in with any kind of a statement, Rick's got a bunch of books for you. Call in.
Hey, Dick, I want to mention that too. I believe we had 2 or 3 new callers in here tonight.
Okay.
So, if you're still listening, and we have books, I got some really good publications. I want to thank Jim Hill out in Seattle, Washington, ex-Jehovah's Witness, for giving us the books. We've got a dozen really good books. I mean, they've been reprinted. For example, this one right here. Well, let me hold it up. Let me come back on, Dick, for a second. And I can hold this up, and because I really want to Jim got a hold of me. He says, Rick, give more books away. So let me do this right here. Okay, so here's let me put myself on big here. Hold on. Let me maximize it. Come on. Okay, there we go. All right. So anyways, Captives of a Concept. This book is written by an ex-Jehovah's Witness, Don Cameron. And I'd love to give you the book. It's a beautiful book. In fact, it's the book that really helped my wife, Susan, get out of the so-called truth. Captives of a Concept. Now here's another one here. I'll tell you, you'll pay online over $125 for the original copy of Millions Now Living Will Never Die. I've got the book in a reprint, and this is verbatim everything that was in the original Millions Now Living Will Never Die book we have here. It's verbatim, and the reason why Jim Hill, and thank God for him, he really has helped me a lot with these publications. Lulu Printing, it's a publishing company that will publish books and republish books. And the reason why this is not copyright material by the Watchtower is because the patents ran out, or the copyright, I should say, ran out on it. And they never renewed it, evidently. So he's able to do this legally. But here's one here. This is a brand new one. This one here is called Grave Matters. And this deals with Charles Taze Russell's grave, the pyramid. Of course, we know it's not there now, but it's a very provocative book. And this can help you. I've got 15 different publications. I'm not going to go into showing them all. But if you're new and you called into Dick's program tonight, or if you call into the 6 Screens JW World News tonight, I'll give you a book. So by all means, if you're new and you've called in for the first time, write to me at jwworldnews@gmail.com. Say, Rick, I was new on the call, and give me your physical address. I'll mail you a book. Okay. No shipping charge, nothing. You get it free. Okay, Dick, back to you.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you. It's really kind of ironic that an organization that calls itself The Truth is just inundated with lies and liars, governing body members lying. Pedophilia has been, from the onset of Jehovah's Witnesses with C.T. Russell, fooling around with a young single sister named Ball. They get rid of her. They send her back to Australia, but she was a teenager, and he was messing with her. And you've got Rutherford. He dumped his wife and his son, and had a mistress. They called her
dietitian.
What?
A dietitian.
Yeah,
So that's all very true. Everything you're saying is absolutely true. However, I would like to.
At the same time.
I'm sorry, ma'am. I'll be quiet. You go ahead.
No, I just wanted to correct it. He had two mistresses at the same time.
Oh,
I
wow.
mean, you know what? That's called a threesome. And what can I say?
Well, he wasn't in California, but he had two Cadillacs when the people of America were starving and out of work.
It's all true. We can even talk about the house, the mansion that Judge Rutherford bought for Ezekiel.
Yeah.
Or Elijah. I mean, whichever one. I mean, that was a mansion out there because he was so sure of himself that he would witness a resurrection of a prophet.
Oh,
well, you
crazy.
know, brother,
It was absolutely crazy. And
It's all totally crazy, and everything's being said is absolutely right. Now, my subject about the moment is an important one. It's called artificial intelligence. I used artificial intelligence to turn the governing body upside on their head during the Norway trial. And in Norway, Jehovah's Witness attorney argued that the disfellowship was coming to the Kingdom Hall and singing to the top of the lungs. No, it was only me. I went to the front row when I was disfellowship, and I sang music out of my voice. Now here, artificial intelligence, here's a problem. The Watchtower and Bible Tract Society has laid off Bethel. There's no more human writing of the Watchtower that you're reading. It's done by artificial intelligence. They have turned the organization over to artificial intelligence. I'm a grandfather of artificial intelligence, to be honest with you, so I know quite a bit about it. And I used artificial intelligence to make the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses publish the August 2024 Watchtower, the hidden Watchtower that told what was really going on. They had no choice but to publish it. And also in Norway, the person they were talking about when they said the disfellowship are coming to sing in the Kingdom Hall was me, because I'm a professional singer, a film producer. I'm also a music producer, and I have 7 albums out on 150 platforms. 2 of them was written about the organization and the truth. Now, let me tell you something. This battle has begun. We're in a fight, fighting for the truth and God's word, and I'm going to fight to take down the evil slave class running Jehovah's organization. Good night.
Well, thank you, brother, for that comment. And let me suggest to you that you give Rick a call and talk to him about having your own program. Just think it over, pray over it. *6. Anybody?
Well, I hope Brother Newton will call Fran and Joe and give them his number, and then he can call me. I'd love to talk to him at length about it privately.
Sounds good. Sounds good. It's nice to have people that are very knowledgeable. You know, the Watchtower would like you to believe that all of us are irate apostates, that we're all liars, we're all degenerates, we're horrible people. And all the stuff that we're putting down on 6 screens is nothing but apostate-driven lies. That's what they would like you to believe.
Rick, I mean,
yeah, just let me finish this. Just
Hey.
let me finish. Go ahead, brother. All right. Just to finish the thought, if we were lying, if we were saying things that weren't true, they could sue us. They could sue me. They could sue Connie. They could take our house if we were casting aspersions on their character. But they don't. They don't take us to court, or they don't sue us for defamation of character, because what we're saying is true. If it weren't true, they'd be coming after us because they know what we're saying. They have a brother who's assigned to 6 screens. He used to be known as Johnny the Bethelite. He's probably no longer on the earth, or no longer alive, but they have somebody at Bethel listening to every word that's being said. and it's getting back to the governing body. That's why they're telling their rank and file not to listen to apostate-driven lies. But we're not lying. This is all the truth. Everything you hear is the truth. If we're not sure of something, but this is particularly true of Rick, he'll say, well, don't go to the bank and try to cash it. It's just what he's thinking. Anytime I go, I'll tell you that this is how I feel. This is my theory, and I would also copycat Rick and say, don't take it to the bank and try to cash it. But we're not lying. The people who come on 6 screens are not lying. The Watchtower is totally corrupt, and it's totally controlled by Satan and devil. And I guess AI is going to be doing a lot of their work. Well, AI, in my opinion, is controlled by Satan and devil, because even though he's extremely evil, he's brilliant in relationship to how smart we are. Star 6. Got 15 minutes left.
This is Grace from Sweden.
It's great.
So
Hello, Grace.
I wanted to say, first of all, that it's really important that some people who don't call in so often, that they try to call in more, because it's not like you have to say something very, very important. It's just nice for us that are here every weekend that we can hear a different voice sometimes. So I want to encourage everybody who don't call in too much. And also, I wanted to mention this about the Watchtower and the governing body. They claim to be God's true religion on earth. And at the same time, if you read Matthew 9 and 13, Jesus say, I want to see mercy and not sacrifice, because I have come to call not the righteous ones, but sinners. And I don't feel that they have the spirit of Jesus in their organization, because they are too judgmental and just loveless, and they change things all the time. And that's just, if they really had the truth, they wouldn't change.
You're right.
The governing body has come out in Watchtower and confessed that they confess that they are not inspired nor infallible. I mean, if you're not inspired from God, and at the same time you say you're God's true religion, it doesn't add up.
You're right.
If you say something, it must add up. So there's just so many things that they have changed over years that it's just ridiculous. So that's all from me. Thank you.
Well, no, thank you, Grace. And I'd just like to add to what you were saying. If you think it's important, it doesn't have to be an epiphany of some deep secret that the Watchtower has been burying for years. If it's important to you, it's important that you say it, get it off your chest, as the expression goes, because you're going to feel better. And you know what? More than likely, there's somebody else listening, with 2,000 or 3,000 people listening. They're going to feel that that's very, very important. Or they say, well, that's very apropos in my life. So, Grace, thank you for calling, and please don't be a stranger to 6 screens. We know you're not, but we love hearing from you. Star 6. You want to comment on anything we're talking about tonight, or just anything? Anybody new, particularly? I'd love to hear from somebody who's never called in before.
Hello, Dick. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hi, Dick. Hi, Connie. This is Matthew calling from South Africa.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for calling in.
Yeah, enjoyed how you visit other, survivor groups and support them. So I think it's also the genuine camaraderie, the genuine support, even if there's differing ideas. I think there's some very good relationships that are being formed, and people tap into that because that's what's been punished. You know, with this whole shunning, which isn't shunning according to the Norway lawyer, what was his name, Anders Risdal. That's the focal point at the moment. He's saying, well, you know, this thing has been contrived or it's been produced by the apostate community. But there it is, sitting in the Bible, in the book of Job, in the 2013 Revised Standard Edition. There it is. It's in the literature. But of course, he's using advocacy to try and say, well, no, this isn't as it seems. But it sounds very, very familiar. And so when persons have been robbed of relationships, which actually has been a very big draw card for many that got into the organization, when that's been pulled out, and then you have various groups, be it Six Screens or the extended, what can we say, recovery groups where persons are genuinely trying to elevate each other, what a difference. It really does make a difference. And I wanted to say thank you, Dick. Thank you, Constance. You're doing that. So thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, I thank you very much for calling in and for the kind words. I would suggest to the audience, John Ledger just did a video on the two-witness rule, how the Watchtower is taken away out of context to cover up pedophilia. That's what they're using. I'm sure there's some elders, sitting, in a judicial meeting, and essentially we had 4 or 5 pedophiles in the congregation. How do we protect the young ones? Well, you can't say nothing because it'll make the Watchtower look bad or make Jehovah's Witnesses look bad. Well, so what? It's more important that we protect these kids. Well, brother, you can't go against the two-witness rule. You really should he did such a wonderful explanation, John Ledger did, on YouTube. What an explanation he gave on the two-witness rule, how it's taken way out of context, and you just got to have to view it for yourself. One thing, we give $4 a month to his channel, and it's money well spent, because I don't think he works. I think he just does research.
No, he works.
Well, my wife is saying he does work. But anyway, I guess he spends all his time. He's read everything the Watchtower's ever read. And what research this guy does. I'll bet he could have gone to college and had a double major for law and being a psychologist. If you want to know how the Watchtower really works, go on YouTube. And if you really want, if you can't afford to go to a psychologist or a psychiatrist or somebody like that, just listen to Six Screens. You'll find out you're not alone. The feelings that you have, you think are germane just to yourself. Well, they're not. Other people are suffering, especially those who've been in 30, 40 years, and they're just told recently, well, Armageddon is probably not going to come in your lifetime. When I was being taught Jehovah's Witness way in 1970, it's going to be here in 5 years. 5 years, it's going to be here. And if you're not a Jehovah's Witness, you will die. And Armageddon is going to come in the fall of 1975. Absolutely positive. It says right here in the Bible, you just have to be discerning and understand it and understand the math. Well, I wasn't very good in math, so I said, well, I'll just take your word for it, because you guys don't go to war, and war is terrible, and you're the only religion that doesn't go to war, as far as I knew at the time. So this has to be the true religion. That's how I thought. So I get out of the Marine Corps, and
well, sir, if I may, sir, you're an honorable man, honest-hearted. I really do appreciate you. I have to keep calling in with credentials. Now, in 1977, I reported one of the first documented cases in that time of child pedophilia, where the elder raped the children of two other elders, and they called me and they asked me what to do, and I made the wrong decision. Instead of calling 911, I called the organization. After that, as Barbara Anderson exposed and brought out, and I apologized to her, I told you before, I was the one that got her this fellowship. And Kentucky Bowen, I did it, and I was wrong for doing it, and I hope you forgive me for that. However, here's why the two-witness rule doesn't work, because I'm a forensics expert, one of the first cybercrime instructors to teach people how to take down pedophile networks. The thing of it is that the two witnesses doesn't need to be applied. If somebody rapes somebody, there's such a thing as DNA, there's forensic science, there's network investigations, there's getting an MD5 copy of the laptop, and then there's to let the professional investigators, and I taught professional investigators to go in and find out if somebody's innocent or guilty. The two-will rule witness in this stuff is non-scriptural and it's so freaking stupid. Have a good night.
Well, brother, it took a lot of courage for you to say what you did. The audience certainly appreciates it. I know that me and Connie appreciate what you said. There's a lot of honesty in that. And
the problem with it, as the gentleman just pointed out, is if a boy or girl or a woman has been violated and the police are called, then the soiled garments work as DNA evidence against the wicked.
Well, you're right. Bill Clinton could attest to that.
That is a fact. That is a medical fact.
Yeah.
And often, if this would happen, we know from rape crisis centers and stories that I wrote when I was a reporter, it's very sad to look at these situations. But let's say the boy or girl was violated. Do not wash that person. Get that person to the police station. Take the soiled garments to the police station. That is evidence that puts the wicked in the jailhouse, and in my opinion, they should be under the jailhouse.
Rick, Dick, I wanted to mention something I saw today. I went to a Catholic funeral, and they had a booklet in the church. All my relatives are Catholic. Letter to a suffering church. A bishop speaks on the sexual abuse claims. Now, witnesses are delusional, but let me read one line how delusional Catholic priests are. He said, when I was going through the seminary, it was fashionable to conceive of the devil as a symbol for the evil in the world, or a sort of colorful literary device. I mean, what? You really weren't taught to believe in the devil in the Catholic seminary? I think the problem with the witnesses is they don't believe in the devil either, or they put a stop to some of these shenanigans. At least the Catholic Church is acknowledging they got a problem. Watchtower hasn't even reached stage 1 yet. That's my comment.
Well, thank you.
What about, as far as the sex abuse thing, what about a rape kit that's done on a girl at the hospital? That would be a witness also, right?
That's what I was referring to, sir. That the unwashed victim needs to go to the police with the garments.
Yeah.
Okay? And that serves as evidence, and you've named it correctly. That is what it is named in procedure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because they would have to do something like that. I think either at, like you said, at the police station, or even at the hospital, they do that too, right? Don't they?
They do. Sometimes they will. You know, the person will go to a hospital, but there needs to be a police report, and they have very trained, kind people that handle this in both the police station and the hospital. But if the sad, victimized person has been washed, and the garments that are soiled have been washed, there goes your evidence.
Yeah.
I hate to bring that up. That was hard for me to even broadcast that. The helpful book for anyone, the helpful book of this week is called The Body Keeps Score. And it's a very small book, and it's a very popular book, and there's audio books, and it's about how to be well in your body, mind, and spirit, but it's a one-of-a-kind book for your health if you've had trauma.
You know what I just also thought of too? Let's use the scenario where the garments and everything were washed. The person was washed. Now, if that person that raped the individual had a sexually transmitted disease, when that disease shows up, that too could be a witness, couldn't it?
Oh yes, it would. It would. All of those things would be tested scientifically, medically, with a kind environment for the person who's been victimized. And this is the information that's missing when they don't call the police.
Yeah.
You see, they've taken out the evidence so that the wicked can run free and be sitting there in that Kingdom Hall, and that poor person who's been victimized has no justice.
Yeah.
Do you know what fundamentalism is? Do you know what fundamentalism is?
No
the
mental
Jehovah's
side.
Witness. Yeah, they're a fundamentalist organization. They take everything in the Bible literally. Every little thing that was done thousands of years ago. You can't do that. We're living in a modern world. Wake up.
That's right.
Yeah, well, the New Testament is really what you want to go by. I mean, in the Old Testament, if the Watchtower followed the Old Testament, for example, they would stone a person that was an adulterer or an adulteress, especially if it's a woman. The Jehovah's Witnesses, if they want to follow the Old Testament, if a brother came in and confessed to an adultery, they'd stone him to death. Well, you can't kill somebody, murder or execute somebody, because they did that in the Old Testament, back in the days of Moses and stuff. You just can't do it in today's society. There's a lot of things that you could do in the first test in the first century. Yeah, that's in the Old Testament that Jesus replaced almost all of that Old Testament stuff with the New Testament, different laws and regulations. Got a cold tonight, folks. You gotta forgive me. Go ahead.
Hi, Dick. Hi. This is Nicole. So I wanna just add to what you're saying. If Jehovah's Witnesses follow the Bible as a fundamentalist group, then they would follow the scripture in Numbers. I think it's Numbers that talks about a woman who is raped, and if that woman screamed but no one heard, he doesn't need two witnesses. But because Jehovah's Witnesses want to hide pedophilia in the organization, they use the two witness rule. So they choose which scripture they want to use to apply to a situation, and they ignore the other scriptures that actually should apply to the situation.
You're correct.
That's my thought.
No, you're exactly on target. And one of the videos on YouTube covered that. And yeah, John's program did, and he did a really, really good job on it. I just really hope you all jump onto YouTube and watch some of those videos. And it had a lot to do with the two.
The thing to keep in mind, I think the thing to keep in mind is, like all religions, the basic thing about Jehovah's Witnesses is not pedophilia. That's not the main thing. Come on, let's face it. It's not the main thing about the Catholic Church and all that. It's a big thing. It's something because these people are lacking the truth. They're lacking Christ. Okay, so right away they're going to fail. Now, it's not the main thing. I think it should be focused upon, but there's also a lot of other areas in the witness religion that need to be focused on if you really want to focus on pulling people out. Because there's so much to talk about, you know. There's just so much to talk about.
Sir, I've said it before and I'll say it again. We can talk doctrine and dogma after the people are safe. Because we have situations where women and children are not safe. We have blood policy where people are not safe. After people leave and get safe, then we can wrangle about Trinitarian or not.
Part of that will help them be safe if they can take other issues as well. I mean, it's true. You have to expose. Right. Well, no. You talk mostly about the sexual stuff. To be honest,
we have it in several weeks. In fact, we had a different topics last week.
You know, and the government is doing the same thing with Epstein and all that. You know, listen. Let's get down to the bottom. Let's get to the bottom of this. It's a fundamentalist religion. Okay. They're gonna try to make you believe so that they can sell their buildings and stuff like that. Their real estate. And they make you feel like you're the publisher and they're the faithful, discreet slave. But if you flip it around, who's the publisher really? And who's the faithful, discreet slave? You are. So it's a big mind game.
That's true.
I just wonder what is the subject for the day? I mean, I love it. I'm following you. Like you are. So it's a big mind game. I just wonder what is the subject for the day? I mean, I like it. I'm following you. You are. So it's a big mind game.
Yeah, you're echoing. Shut up your TV or your phone.
Mind game. It's a big mind game to sell their real estate and to sell their propaganda.
All right. Well, I want to thank everybody for calling in tonight and listening to our program. It's past 8 now, and so we're going to turn it over to Rick. I thank everybody for calling in. And I would say God bless everybody and good night and happy Valentine's Day.
All right, folks, one thing you do have to do is when you do call in live on your telephone line, you cannot have YouTube in the background playing. It causes a lot of commotion. So bear in mind, if you're going to call in on your telephone, and if you don't understand why, I'm going to tell you why that happens. You can't have two microphones on at once. So you got your phone microphone on, and what it's doing is it's picking up on YouTube as well. So you got it's confusing the whole system. So by all means, when you call in to the 6 screens, please turn the television down or turn it off. And that way there'll be no confusion. But Dick did a great program tonight. We're looking forward to him coming back in 2 weeks, along with his wife, Constance, and we wish her the best. And we're hoping that all good things can work out for her and for all those that are sick tonight. A lot of people are sick right now. So we ask that you pray for them. And even what's going on with the girl, Guthrie, you see it all over Arizona. You see it all over the news, Nancy Guthrie. But we pray for her too. Boy, if she could be found, she's an older woman. We pray that the authorities can find out who kidnapped her or whatever they did to her. We certainly hope that the best can work out in that situation as well. Well, thank you for coming into the 6 screens tonight. We really appreciate it. We appreciate the Borghis putting forth an effort to let people know what's going on behind the curtains of the Watchtower. Now, stay with us. We are going to JW World News. We're going to be talking about Norway. We're going to be talking about also some changes that are coming up on the horizon. There's a possibility that public talks are going to get the boot. There may not be any more public talks, friends. We're going to talk a little bit about that tonight. We got some other things we want to discuss with you as well. So stay with us. Give us about 2 minutes. We'll be back on. Stay on this channel. If you're on Facebook, if you're on YouTube, if you're on our radio network, by all means, stay on this channel. You don't want to miss what's coming up next on the 6 screens of the Watchtower programming. Thank you very much for being with us and spending some time with Dick tonight. Thank you. All right, we'll end that